This is what you can do about your health, a podcast about how you can make your body healthy, strong, fit, and inhospitable to disease. I'm Sean McClendon. I'm a certified personal trainer, of course, the host of this podcast, author, and health and fitness enthusiast. Thank you for joining me today. The information rather, on this podcast is based on personal research, experience, and opinion, and is not meant to be a substitute for advice from a doctor or a physician. You are advised to consult your doctor or physician before making any changes to your lifestyle. All right. So, um, definitely, in honor of uh, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is October, definitely salute all of you who have dealt with breast cancer, or you had a family member who's dealt with it. So definitely salute to all of you during this time. And so that's what this episode is going to be about. I actually came across an article that I wanted to share some of the information I got from it. But before we get into that, my featured book for this episode is my book called What You Can Do About Belly Fat. Almost everyone at some point has wondered how to get rid of belly fat. And most people, no matter what they do, can't seem to get rid of it. So if that's you, check out my book called What You Can Do About Belly Fat. In it, you'll learn about why fat accumulates around the midsection, the importance of paying attention to a special type of fat called visceral fat, which will be mentioned in this episode as well. And you will receive key exercise, eating, and lifestyle strategies to help your body target belly fat based on my personal training experience as well as my experience in lowering my own body fat to roughly 10%. So if you're ready to take steps to melt belly fat away naturally and keep it away, this is your book. Buy it on Amazon.com. I have the link in the description below. All right. So a few days ago, I came across an article on BaptistHealth.net, and I'm going to make sure I have that in the description. And the name of the article was um, Obesity, Hormone Therapy, um, and Environmental Chemicals, Risk Factors for Breast Cancer. And so I'm only focusing on one aspect of it, the whole obesity bit, but it also does talk about hormone therapy and environmental chemicals. I encourage you to read the article yourself. Um, And the article it references a doctor. Her name is Angelina and she's a medical doctor. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she's a MD and she's an oncologist, a cancer doctor at Lynn Cancer Institute. Um, and apparently that institute is a part of the Baptist Health, which is where this article came from. Anyhow, let me get into what it said, and so that we can kind of get into the meat of this episode. So the article was kind of like asking about whether or not obesity is a risk factor for breast cancer. Risk factor meaning it's something that could possibly lead to the development of it. Um, And I kind of pulled out a few tidbits from this article that I wanted to share. And Dr. Angelina, she said that obesity is the clearest and best known modifiable risk factor for breast cancer. The clearest risk factor for breast cancer, as well as the best known modifiable risk factor. So, in other words, it's like it's the most apparent link to breast cancer, and then the best known modifiable risk factor, like the best known risk factor that you can modify yourself. Okay. She also said that obesity affects breast cancer risk differently depending on whether a woman is in premenopause or postmenopause. And that was interesting and something I had never heard of. And so menopause, of course, is like having to do with whenever a woman, whenever her cycle ends. And so you have that premenopause time, which is, of course, before it happens, and then the postmenopause time after it happens. And so the body is, it's very different. Like the hormonal profile is very different before and after. The article mentioned that premenopause is associated with more aggressive, I guess, types of breast cancer. And I think this was still related to obesity. Yes, obesity, um, premenopause is associated with more aggressive breast cancers, and then postmenopause is associated with more hormone sensitive um, breast cancers. Now, I'll say this before I go on. One thing that I've seen in general with obesity is that obesity affects the hormones a lot. Obesity tends to be associated with an alteration of the hormone profile. And of course, I am by no means an expert, but I know that I've read on different type of things just in my various readings on health and wellness and fitness and all that type of stuff. And fat accumulation to the point of obesity, it really affects not just like sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone, but it affects, of course, the hormone insulin. It affects hormones associated with your hunger. Um, and in particular, whenever there is an accumulation of fat around the midsection, it tends to have a greater effect. And the reason why, according to what I've seen, is because um the fat is surrounding your visceral organs. It's just surrounding those internal organs, and so the substances and chemicals and whatnot that are being secreted, and even hormones that are being secreted by the fat, are directly affecting the organs that are right around there. And so that's why visceral fat, like I mentioned with my book or whatever, visceral fat in particular is very problematic when it's very high levels of it, because fat is a it's an active tissue. It's not just like, oh, fat makes me look the way I don't want to look or whatever. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It's not even just energy storage, which is a very important aspect of fat's function, but it also is active tissue. Like, it's actually called an endocrine organ, a hormonal organ. So it really affects the hormones in our bodies, and in particular, whenever we have excess levels of fat for our body size or whatever, then it also has it can have a negative effect because the hormonal function is more pronounced, which would make sense if there's more fat tissue. So yeah, in the article it was said that abdominal girth is most serious. So in other words, girth around the abdomen, being, so we're talking about visceral fat again here. Um, Now this was very interesting to me. I didn't really understand. I had never heard this particular bit before. What the article said was that fat in particular requires a lot of oxygen. And so when there's excess fat around the abdomen, sometimes the need for oxygen exceeds the supply of oxygen that a person is receiving. And that is a cause of higher levels of inflammation. So basically, in other words, fat levels can be excessive to the point that the amount of oxygen taken in is not meeting the needs of the body. And so that leads to inflammation. And then it's that chronic inflammation via different chemicals being secreted by the fat, different and then cytokines, which you may have heard about that. I've talked about it before. They're messengers um that tell your immune system where it kind of needs to pay what it needs to pay attention to, where it need to go and attack this area, like some sort of bad actor in a part of the body. And so apparently, whenever you're not getting that oxygen that you need, that since your body needs more oxygen due to your fat levels, inflammation increases. Chronic inflammation can promote cancerous growth. So that was something that I had never heard before. Um, so yeah, but that's something to think about. It's the fact that excess levels of abdominal fat can cause you to not take in as much oxygen as you need, because fat requires a lot of oxygen. Again, new information for me. It's very good to kind of like know this type of stuff. And then finally, the last point that I pulled out of the article was that patients who maintain like their weight, like if they're obese and they maintain a high level of weight after a breast cancer diagnosis can cause patients. It seems to cause patients to do worse. All right. So anyhow, the main reason I'm kind of pointing this out is because the article kind of came up in this breast cancer awareness month. So I wanted to point it out, and especially the fact that it said that obesity is the clearest and best known modifiable risk factor. Now we already know that obesity is problematic for a variety of different reasons. It can cause you to wear your joints out faster. It can lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes because of the decreased insulin sensitivity. And the list goes on and on. It can lead to a immune system not functioning the way it should because chronically increased inflammation levels. And now we see, it's clear link to breast cancer as well as a best known modifiable risk factor for breast cancer. So with this being a podcast where I'm always wanting to encourage you to do whatever it is you can to make your body as healthy as possible, it's really just another case for whether you're male or female, whatever your status is, overweight, obese, whatever, do your best to not carry excess fat levels. And it's not just because of looks, which, I ain't mad at that, but it's because carrying that excess fat can lead to health problems because it exaggerates the hormonal, it seems to, from what I see, exaggerate the effect that your fat would normally have on like your whole hormonal system and can kind of throw things out of whack. Okay. So, hey, do what you can, man. And as far as like if you want to know how to lose fat, I mean, I'll tell you the main thing is don't eat try to eat as little processed food as you possibly can. Little to no processed food. That means anything that comes from like a fast food restaurant, anything that comes in the package or whatever. Because those a lot of times aren't even qualified to be called food. Um, I know, trust me, I know they taste good, but they're not good for us. Second thing is drinking, sweet drinks or consuming high carb foods or whatever. You need to consume less of those. The drinks, you just need to cut them out, even if it's artificially sweetened. You need to just cut those out. And then you need to kind of pull back on like the really carb heavy foods like breads and potatoes and stuff. I'm not saying necessarily cut them out unless you're intolerant to grains, of course. But what I'm saying is those don't need to be those don't need to form like the basis of your diet, like the key, like the main part of your diet. The main part of your diet needs to be non-starchy vegetables. Okay. And then finally, aside from that, that's the most important part, what you eat. And then finally, when it comes to wanting to lose fat, be active. You need to be active. You need to be moving your body in some sort of way. That might mean you go to the track and walk or run or ride a bike or whatever. Or it might just mean you're just an active person in general, like just with your non-exercise activity. Either way, you need to be active. The most important thing when it comes to you losing fat is going to be what you put into your body, like how you eat and stuff like that. But then exercise or moving your body is extremely important as well. Then you can go into getting good rest because you need to do that anyway, um, and things like that. So anyhow, I'll put the link to this article in the description so you can look at it yourself, and be informed. It's all about being informed so that we can take responsibility for our own health. That'll be it for this episode. Leave a comment if you have anything to say. Subscribe, like, share this episode. Subscribe, y'all. Subscribe. I put out several episodes of this podcast every week because I really want to empower you based on the things that I research, the things that come across. You know, like I said, I'm a personal trainer and I call myself a health and fitness enthusiast because I'm really enthusiastic about all things health and fitness. I'm not an MD, I'm not a researcher, but I like to look up that stuff myself so I can be informed and so I can let you know so you can be responsible for your own health instead of thinking that there's nothing that you can do. There's a whole lot you can do. Matter of fact, you are the main point person when it comes to your health. It's not your doctor, like I always say. Um, Make sure you get your copy of What You Can Do About Belly Fat. The link is in the description below. And always remember that your doctor is not responsible for your health. You are. God bless you.